Aloha and welcome to Thumbing Through Yesterday, the podcast where we take our favorite books down off the shelf, dust them off, and remind ourselves why it is we love them so. Joining me today, we've got Tony Piscoli.
Thanks, Tom.
And what are we reading today? What are we talking about today?
Today, we are talking about The Stainless Steel Rat by Harry Harrison. And same disclaimer as last episode, we have to say that this is is it even a favorite book? It was a favorite book in my imagination, but not a particularly great book. And I think it's important to say that back in my youth, growing up in a small town like you with one bookstore, I very early on became a member of the science fiction book club, and bought a lot of my early science fiction books from the science fiction book club. And my main criteria, because I knew nothing and no one at that time, I didn't even have a circle of friends who were passing around science fiction books, was how many pages the books are.
Hey.
That's how I would choose. And The Stainless Steel Rat came in a trilogy of 3 novels. It's like, oh, that's good value. Yeah, I'm buying that.
My $5 is going far this time.
Yes. So, and that's how I bought. That's how I bought the first 9 Princes in Amber, the Amber series. Mm-hmm. The first 5 books came as a selection from the Science Fiction Book Club. It's like, damn, 5 books for the price of 1. Yes. Yeah.
You are a savvy consumer.
So that one paid off. This one less so. These books are a lot of fun, but not great. And the thing that struck me is how I had an idea about what these books were, and I was almost completely wrong. You think going in that it's going to be about this master thief, Slippery Jim deGriz, and almost immediately he gets turned and put into the service of the whatever's. He works for this guy named Inskip as part of the Special Forces or Special Security something. I don't remember what it was called, the organization. It's like, what? He's not a master thief anymore. He's a spy in the service of the government. You're doing severe violence to your premise there, buddy. Yeah.
Well, I think I remember having read these because I remember the name certainly, and I thought I was highly confident I had read them before and fairly confident I remembered what they were about. I was completely wrong on the second account. This book has nothing in common with the series that I think I remember. I wonder if I'm conflating it with a different series.
What's the series? What are the details of the series you do remember?
Well, it's bits and pieces, but I remember there's a point where the character, and I thought it was the Stainless Steel Rat, becomes president of the galaxy.
It could be a later book in the series, the Stainless Steel Rat for President.
There's a counterforce, right? Mm-hmm. But in these, what I remember about this series of books is that time and time again, he either has his life saved by the most improbable of luck, or he somehow intuits the unintuitable. Mm-hmm. In the one where he was the president, right, there's a place where his fleet of ships is running from another fleet of ships, and they're in trouble because they're heading into an asteroid belt and they have to stop, in which case their doom is assured. And then he goes to sleep, and in his sleep he dreams that there are people in spacesuits outside on the hulls of the ship using pugil sticks to push the asteroids out of the way. And then he wakes up to find out that that's exactly what his military commander has done. Put people outside on the hulls of the ships in spacesuits with pugil sticks to push the asteroids out of the way.
That's a pretty close-packed asteroid field.
You're traveling at presumably relativistic speeds. I mean, you're running from somebody. Yeah. So it wouldn't take much of an asteroid to,
Yeah.
Anyway, other than it being completely improbable to actually work, he dropped the answer. And this is like all through the what I remember, my bits of memory of this series are all incidents like that, where it's like, you really expect me to believe that? Right? He's on the presidential train. He doesn't know where the toilet is. So one of the workers happens to be going by. He's like, where are you going? The guy's like, I got to go to the bathroom. He's like, go ahead and use mine. It's closer. Just so that he can follow the guy into the toilet and find out where it is. Well, the guy happens to be chewing tobacco and spits into the urinal. And there's a crack of electricity. And they find out the urinal's been electrified. So they're going to kill the president when he urinates. Just these improbably lucky, improbably over and over again. So that's all I remembered about the series. We don't see that in this book, though.
A little bit. One of the things about this book is that it's meant to be a romp. It's not meant to be taken seriously. It's goofy. It's fun. It's light. And it is improbable, as you say.
Well, I enjoyed the heck out of this. I really did.
Oh, good.
And I may actually give it credit as the best opening chapter ever.
The opening chapter is about his bank heist.
Yes.
That's literally the only thing I remembered about this book.
Actually, it's not the bank heist. It's a warehouse heist.
Warehouse heist,
right?
Yes.
Yep. I mean, from the first sentence that chapter grabbed me, and it did not let me go, and it did not let me down. It was just delightful. And it was short and to the point, and it really just convinced me, wow, do I want to read more about this guy?
Yes.
Who almost immediately, as you say, gets captured and turned. And I kind of, in a way, I love that. I love the thought of, he has operated with impunity without people even suspecting that or at least he thought, without people even suspecting that he existed.
Mm-hmm.
He's convinced of his own superiority. He's aware of his own fallibility, and because he's aware of it, he thinks he's actually infallible.
Yes.
And then to suddenly find himself completely behind the curve, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. I love that opening, like you say, so much that I wanted more of that. I just want more of that character.
I did want more of that.
Give me more Master Thief doing Master Thief escapades. He turns into such a good guy, which, I mean, it's okay to root for a good guy, I suppose. But kind of one of his points is he's almost on a moral crusade. He's not a thief because he's in it for the money. He has all the money he needs and then some.
Yep.
He steals because he should, because society deserves to be stolen from. It's a crusade. It's like, it reminds me very much of a Harlan Ellison story, Repent, Harlequins at the TikTok Man. Have you read that one?
Not ringing any bells.
Where there's a very orderly society and everything runs on a tight schedule like Switzerland or something like that. And people go and the public transportation is set up in such a way that it is perfectly optimized for the population because everyone knows which train they're supposed to be on. And this guy is just like, no, too much order. I must rebel against it. And he throws jelly beans in the tracks to screw him up. Just that. He's just an agent of chaos because there's not enough chaos in the world. Yeah, and that reminds me very much of Slippery Jim here. That he's just like, there's too much. The world is too locked down. It's too pure. It's too good. There's no excitement. He says that what he does is he's providing a service. Nobody loses by it. He steals from some company and they're insured, so they get made whole. And the insurance company, they just raise their rates, so everybody else gets distributed. The whole cost of the thing gets distributed over the entire planet. And meanwhile, everybody gets some excitement. The cops get to practice their cop skills, and bystanders get to witness an exciting chase scene. And it's all great. Newspapers have something to write about. Yeah.
Yep, he's performing a valuable service.
Yeah, it's win-win-win. Yeah. So it's a little disappointing to have him forced into the good guy role so quickly. And he does rebel against it. He chafes under the yoke, and he goes off and does his own thing for a while. But I really was expecting more of that when I came back to this book, and I was disappointed.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me in a way of the Loki TV series, which starts with Loki being captured and impressed into service of good.
Yeah.
This is sort of the same thing. We get just a taste of this wonderful character and his hijinks, his exploits. And he thinks he escapes, right? He thinks he's off on his own, doing it for whatever his reasons are.
Yes.
And of course, that turns out not to be the case.
Yeah. Since you mentioned Loki, it's one of my big objections to the series, which I did enjoy, but you can't turn Loki into a good guy. He's literally the god of mischief.
Yeah, I mean, he could, on a lark, be good for a bit. I don't have a conceptual problem with that, but
he's a murderer. He's a multi-time murderer. Yeah,
that too.
Yes.
Which the stainless steel rat studiously avoids. He takes pride in the fact that he has never killed anybody.
He's a classic. Well, he's not even a classic rogue. He's considerably more ethical than, say, Han Solo or someone like that.
Han shot first.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, he's pretty much it's weird. He's not a good guy, but he's one of those bad guys that you love to root for because he's got a strong moral code.
Yep.
Yeah. So even if you don't agree with all his choices. And they make a clear distinction. He ends up with a girl named Angela, who is straight up evil. Does that happen in the first book?
Yep.
It does. Okay.
Yep.
I went and I read all three of the original trilogy.
Oh, okay.
And so no.
I said, we just read it.
Blurred together.
Nope. Yep. She is the foil, the villain of the first story of the first book here.
Yes. Oh, that's right. He's pursuing her. He's pursuing her across systems. Yeah.
And once again finds himself outmatched.
Yes.
It turns out in the scale of these slippery universal characters, he's probably the worst of them because everyone else is actually ahead of him. Everyone that we come up against, anyway.
That's true. Well, of the notable characters, but one of the things he talks about is most of the population are basically sheep. They're NPCs. Yeah. Most of the world's NPCs, and there are people who count like Inskip and Angela and Jim. Yeah. And of those three, he's at the bottom of the...
Yeah, he's definitely third in the three-man race here.
Yes.
Now, Angela, I mean... They give us an attempt at making her a sympathetic character by giving a little bit of a backstory there, which I don't buy.
Nope.
I really, and this is a Manini thing, but I really wanted to find out what her plans were for that warship. Yeah. Because we simply never get an answer to that, and then it gets taken away from her, so we never get a chance to see. And then she never, one thing I do like about her is that she doesn't just start lecturing on her evil plans, right? Yeah. She doesn't suffer from that villain flaw. But they go on for quite a while about what an unbelievably massive, impractical warship this is, and he even considers maybe she's going to be a space pirate. And he's like, nope, this was way too much warship for being a space pirate. There are much better choices. What was she up to? And then we'll never find out.
She's going to take over entire systems. Yeah. That's one thing I like about her as a character is the scale of her ambition. It is vast. I mean, Slippery Jim, he calls himself the stainless steel rat. That's his own moniker for himself. And he's someone who likes to live in the cracks in society, sort of unseen, hidden, and sometimes you notice the effects, from his little plans, but you never see him. You're never aware of him. He might be right under your nose, and you would never know. And Angela is exactly the opposite. She wants to make a big splash. She wants to be in charge of things. She wants to rule worlds. Her ambition is enormous. So it is kind of, we talk about Jim being forced into the role of a good guy, then she gets literally forced into the role of a good guy by the end of the book.
Well, yeah, she gets ultimately captured, and their intention is to turn her, but
that doesn't happen to the end
we
of the
don't
book.
See that.
That's the beginning of the second book. Sorry. Again, read the whole trilogy. They do. They basically mind wipe her and reprogram her to be, they say something slightly different. They say they have identified the trauma in her past and the effect that it had on her brain, and they fix that directly. So by removing the trauma and repairing the injury, she can become a good person. And it's a sketchy little bit of psychology. I'm not sure that human minds work like that. In particular, I think if you become a good person with the memory of all the horrible things you've done, how do you then live with yourself?
That should be an issue.
Yeah. So, but she does go on to become his girlfriend and sidekick in future escapades.
I'd probably remember that if I read more of them. I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting that you came into the series. I think it's Stainless Steel Rat for President, which I haven't read. I've only read the first three. And again, I remembered nothing about any of these books, except for one scene later on, which I won't bore you with. It has no relevance to this. But the opening scene of this book was so vivid in my mind. That's what I thought the whole series was. Yeah. And it just isn't.
That's a shame. That would really be a fun series.
Yeah.
That could have gone such a different direction. And I was really, as I was reading this, it felt like I was reading a Douglas Adams almost. It had that same sort of, it was fast, it was funny.
Yes, it's breezy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this was delightful.
Have you read any other Harrison?
I don't know. What else is notable under his name?
He wrote a book called, this was popular in my circle in high school, Bill the Galactic Hero.
That sounds vaguely familiar.
It's one of the early science fiction parody novels. And then he famously wrote Make Room, Make Room, which was not a great book, but was the basis for the movie Soylent Green. Yeah. Oh, and he also wrote the Death World trilogy, which is another science fiction book club selection for me. And again, 3 books for the price of one. I don't think I know
that one. Nope.
Death World is a lot of fun. Death World is about a world that is so dangerous that everybody who is from there is the most lethal human being you can imagine. And when they go off planet, and people encounter them by mistake, they just pay an immediate and horrible price because they're so deadly. They all walk around strapped. They all carry guns all the time. And because life on this planet is so dangerous, you don't take the time to draw your gun out of its holster and aim it. You just point at the thing, and it's got a cable that snaps the gun into your hand. It just reads your reflexes and goes, yeah. So that's a fun series. Anything else to say about, I should pull up my notes here because I do have notes on this book.
Yeah, by all means.
All right. So this is his ethos. At a certain stage, the realization strikes through that one must either live outside of society's bonds or die of absolute boredom. There is no future or freedom in the circumscribed life, and the only other life is a complete rejection of the rules. There is no longer room for the soldier of fortune, the gentleman adventurer, who can live both within and outside of society. So he sees society as so constrained, and there's no room in society for someone like him that he has to live entirely outside the bounds of society. That's what makes him the stainless steel rat. Yeah, so that's fun. That's fun as a character. And then, of course, he immediately gets co-opted into society by getting drafted into the special forces or whatever it's called.
I think I actually highlighted that same passage.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was such a nice summary of his view of the world.
Yes.
There was actually, I remember there was something that I did want to nitpick on this one. And this is something that pops up in sci-fi books from time to time, and it always grates me the wrong way. But after he pulls his initial caper in that first, he goes to the starport, and he's hopping off to another planet in system because there are 20 inhabited terraformed planets in this system. No, there aren't. There cannot be.
Yes, they don't all fall in the Goldilocks
There can only be one, maybe two planets that can be terraformed and you can walk. Period. End of story. Any star, anywhere. It just infuriates me. If he was going to a dome colony, that would be fine. Or to a space station, that would be fine. There are not 20 terraformed habitable worlds orbiting that star.
Tell it to Joss Whedon.
They kind of retconned that because in the series, they never explicitly say that everything's in the same system. It's not until the movie Serenity that it's explicitly said these are all planets in the same system.
That was a real record scratch moment for me. It's like, what? The verse is one solar system? The verse? Come on. And
they had to get to that other system. So, interstellar travel was a thing at some point because they got there from Earth it was. Yeah. Anyway. I think that wasn't Joss. I think that was some studio exec.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So anyway, you were saying, so he's in one of these planets, one of these many.
The fact, this is it. That was my rant.
Oh, that was it.
The fact that there were 20 inhabited, terraformed planets in this one system. It's like, no, there were not.
I do like, there's a moment that I know highlighted here, is a little bit later on, where he's hunting for Angela, and he goes and he finds he needs a hotel room, and he goes to pay for something, and he's just suddenly taken aback. It's like, oh my God, here I was acting like an honest man. You're a criminal, I muttered through clenched teeth and spat on a no spitting sign. You hate the law and live happily without it. You are a law unto yourself and the most honest man in the galaxy. You can't break any rules since you make them up yourself and change them whenever you see fit. Yes, I love that little motivational pep talk he gives himself.
What am I doing? I'm a crook.
Yes. That's all I have on this book, though. Yeah. A couple other highlights, but I don't think there's anything relevant here.
Yeah, this was just a really fun read.
Yes, it is.
And I may well go ahead and indulge in a few more of these as, time allows. It entertained me thoroughly. And again, it grabbed me in a way that few books grab me right up front. Yeah.
They're short, and if you enjoy them, you can toss them off in an afternoon or an hour or two. They're really quick. They're fast reads, but they're also not long. I think they're less than 200 pages a piece.
Yeah, I think the average read time was 2.5 hours, according to my Kindle.
Oh my goodness, this is 112 pages. 112 pages. Take note, George R.R. Martin. Yeah. All right. What are we doing? Anything else on this? Stainless steel wrap?
I'm good.
Okay. What are we doing next time?
Well, I'm going to swing a little bit in the opposite direction here.
Okay.
I was looking for something that I really wanted to sink my teeth in, and it occurred to me we have been doing this a long time without actually hitting one of my favorite sci-fi authors, which is Larry Niven. We
Larry
brushed
Niven.
up against him in the Star Trek logs, but we didn't really get there. So I'm thinking The Mote in God's Eye.
Ah, good choice. Good choice. Niven and Purnell, technically, right?
Niven and Purnell, co-author there. I'm going to spend some time with the Moties.
That is a good book. That is a good book. All right. Yeah.
All right.
Because Niven's one of those authors who I love Niven, but it's hard to pick out an individual book that's a great book.
And, I was going back and forth. Ringworld was definitely on that list.
Of course, has to be.
Has to be. But, just the meat of and the politics behind the... it reminds me a lot of Dune in a way.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the book before we've even read it here.
Yes, yeah. Let's read the book first and then talk about it. All right. Looking forward to that one.
Yeah, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks.